Buried beneath the destroyed city of Berlin was Hitler's final hiding place, the Führerbunker. It was built to be safe from bombs and enemy forces, a concrete tomb meant to be his last fortress. On May 2nd, 1945, Soviet troops finally broke inside. But what they found inside would haunt the world forever. The Führerbunker wasn't just a basement, it was a fortress buried deep beneath Berlin streets. The lower section had 18 rooms, including Hitler's personal quarters, a conference room and supply storage. When Soviet troops finally entered the bunker, they expected ruins, but instead, they found rooms still standing. Maps were still pinned to the walls. A couch sat in the middle of the war room, slightly burnt, but untouched. Hitler's bed was still there. You could see the shape of the last person who slept in it. It was like time had frozen. Quiet, heavy, like death was still in the air. These soldiers had walked into history's darkest basement. On April 20th, just days before, Hitler had turned 56. He didn't celebrate in public. He stayed underground, surrounded by his closest staff and generals. Eva Braun gave him flowers. Officers raised glasses. Outside, Soviet bombs lit the sky like firecrackers from hell. Hitler was shaking, his voice weak. He no longer looked like the man who once screamed in front of thousands. But still, he talked about victory, or at least, dying for his cause. One of the most famous photos shows a couch, simple, elegant, and stained. Look closely. There is only one dark patch on the fabric. This is the couch where Hitler is believed to have ended his life. He used a pistol. Eva Braun, his wife just for one day, swallowed poison. Otto Gunsche, one of Hitler's personal adjutants, was one of the first to enter the room. He later described what he saw. Hitler was slumped, either sitting or collapsed, with blood coming from a gunshot wound to his head. A dark pool had formed on the floor beneath him. Eva Braun looked different. No blood, no wounds, just still and quiet. She had likely died from cyanide, silent and almost invisible. Outside the bunker, near the garden, Soviet troops found a shallow hole in the ground. Inside it were burned bodies, bones, blackened skin, pieces of skull. They were told these were Hitler and Eva Braun. They gathered the remains, bones, ashes and scraps of clothing, and placed them in this wooden box. It wasn't a coffin, but it became their last grave. His last order had been clear: destroy the bodies with gasoline. In this picture, near the pit, you can see empty fuel canisters. Over 180 liters were used. But fire doesn't burn everything. Some bones survived. Most important, his lower jaw, filled with gold dental work. Fire tries to erase, but sometimes it fails. A few days later, the first Western journalist was allowed inside. He walked in holding just a candle and a camera. What he found wasn't fake or staged. It was dark, cold, wet and silent. Plates, bottles and papers still lay on the table. It looked like everyone had left in a hurry. He took photos of the burnt sofa, the damaged walls, and a Nazi officer's cap lying on the floor. Mold had already begun to grow. This 16th century painting, stolen by the Nazis from a museum in Milan, now lay discarded on a barrel. Soviet orders were simple: bring Hitler back, alive. Stalin wanted to put him on trial in Moscow. He wanted the world to say him broken. But when the soldiers reached the garden, they found only ashes. Stalin refused to believe it. Maybe it was a trick. Maybe Hitler had escaped. Maybe the body was a fake. So Stalin did something strange. He kept asking, "Are we sure he's dead?" And behind closed doors, he sent agents hunting for answers. He didn't want a dead hero. He wanted a live prisoner. One thing survived the flames: a broken lower jawbone with gold fillings. Soviet agents found it in the dirt. They brought in German dentists who had worked on Hitler's teeth. They looked at the x-rays and said, yes, this is his. Stalin wasn't happy, but he accepted it. Still, something strange happened. For years, the Soviets locked the jaw away. When new DNA tests came out in 2000s, Russia said no to testing. Why? If it proves Hitler died, why hide it? One jawbone, no DNA tests, endless rumors. On the night of April 28th, just hours before their deaths, Eva Braun became Eva Hitler. They married in a small, cold ceremony inside the bunker. She wore a black silk dress and fancy Italian shoes. The champagne was warm, the mood empty. She had waited over a decade for this moment, and it lasted less than a day. By the next afternoon, both were gone. Joseph Goebbels didn't run. He brought his entire family into the bunker, his wife Magda, and their 6 blonde children. All their names started with H, to honor Hitler. After Hitler's death, Magda told the staff, "Life without him is worthless." That night, she killed her children, one by one, using cyanide. Then she and Joseph ended their lives too. Even Soviet soldiers were shocked when they saw the tiny bodies. 6 innocent lives lost to loyalty. On April 29th, Hitler dictated his final will. He named Admiral Dönitz as his successor. He also called 2 of his closest men, Göring and Himmler, traitors. Eva signed the document. His secretary wrote it down. Later she said it felt like he was already a ghost. Traudl Junge, one of Hitler's secretaries, was there until the very end. She was young, just 25, and had served him for years. She later said, "It was like the world was ending above us, and we were writing history underground." She took down his final will, watched him marry Eva Braun, and when he died, she was one of the last people to see the aftermath. After the bunker was secure, Soviet agents took everything: the couch, clothes, bone pieces, even Hitler's toothbrush. They sealed it all and sent it to Moscow. For decades, the West didn't know what was in those boxes. In 1995, a Russian journalist finally saw them and said it felt like a museum of ghosts. But still, no confirmed body, no clear autopsy, only secrets in folders. Here's where the story gets strange. Years later, the FBI released over 700 pages of reports claiming Hitler may have escaped to South America. Some said he was seen on a ranch in Argentina. Others believed he traveled by submarine from Spain. Even US leaders weren't sure. Stalin believed Hitler escaped. So did Allen Dulles, who later ran the CIA. President Eisenhower also had doubts. Could the body in Berlin have been someone else? The escape theory was fueled by small details, confusing reports, conflicting witness statements, a nose that looked wrong, a sock that didn't match, strange things. Some believe Hitler had a body double, a man trained to copy his walk and voice with dental work designed to match Hitler's. They say the real Hitler escaped, and the double died in the bunker. Sounds crazy? Maybe. But in war, crazy things do happen. The Soviets weren't sure either. Some early reports from their investigators didn't match. That added fuel to the fire. One popular theory says there was a secret tunnel, that Hitler used it to vanish, while his double stayed behind to die. The idea sounds wild, but many people believed it. Was it a trick or the perfect cover-up? And then came another twist. In a Russian archive sat a small piece of skull. It had a bullet hole. For decades, people thought it was Hitler's. Then, in 2009, American scientists tested it. The result? It belonged to a woman, aged 20 to 40, not Hitler. This discovery blew holes in the official story. Was the skull fake? Or did it belong to someone else in the bunker? If the skull wasn't his, what else wasn't? And there is still the jawbone. Russia still has it. Scientists could test it today using DNA. But the Russian government says we see no reason, which means one thing: they likely already know the truth and choose not to share it. To some, that sounds like hiding the truth. To others, it's proof there is something to hide. Why not test it and end the rumors forever? Back in the bunker, Soviet soldiers did more than research. They took photos. Some sat on Hitler's bed, others wrote graffiti on the walls. Soviet soldiers carved their names in victory. But look closer. Over their messages, someone else scribbled words in German. I love the Führer. Even in defeat, some Nazis came back later and left behind these disturbing words. A strange mix of triumph and denial, all on the same wall. It wasn't just about winning, it was personal. They had suffered through the worst. Now they stood where evil had fallen. Justice didn't whisper that day, it shouted. A shattered statue lies in the rubble. The head, cracked and dusty, stares into the dirt. Once raised in honor, now discarded like trash. In July 1945, Winston Churchill visited the ruins. He stood near the pit where Hitler's body had been burned. After the war, the Soviets tried to destroy the bunker. They used explosives, broke down walls, and tried to erase it. but the thick concrete structure refused to disappear. Years passed. The East German government gave up. They filled in the holes, covered the space with dirt, and built a parking lot on top of it. No signs, no tours, nothing to see. People walked over it without knowing what lay below. In 2006, a small plaque was placed nearby. No museum, no memorial, just silence. A place where evil died, hidden under pavement. So now we're left with a question. Did Hitler really die in that bunker? The Soviets said yes, but never showed the world a full body. Western leaders had doubts. Scientists found a skull that wasn't his. The jawbone was never tested. Conspiracies grew. Could he have escaped? Could the world's most hated man have vanished into the shadows? Until Russia allows DNA testing, we may never know. One thing is certain, the world changed forever after that bunker was sealed. People still visit Berlin today, searching for answers. Tourists pose near the spot. Others walk past it unaware. But underground, in silence, history waits. Final truth or final mystery. Sometimes the past refuses to stay buried. If you want to see what Berlin really looked like in those final haunting days, click here for rare photos from May 1945. See you next time.